Cece Howe's here and heads up a lot of this work. And Cece, you got the New York governor who is saying basically there was two well-known pro-life protesters went into an abortion clinic and shouted, "Stop killing babies," which is called trespass. And she comes out condemning it unbelievably strong. Okay, so she said, this is horrible. This is, terrible. Meanwhile, in her state, pro-life women's pregnancy centers have been firebombed, and she says nothing.
Absolutely. And that's the pro-abortion spin and the abortion distortion is that, New York the New York governor is trying to condemn these actions, like you said, of someone just simply going into an abortion clinic and saying, "Stop killing babies." And she's outraged. The governor's outraged. And yet you can actually firebomb a pregnancy resource center, and then you have crickets because they don't care. They don't care about that. It's completely ridiculous. Even the attorney general made a statement that everyone should be able to make decisions about their bodies without fear of intimidation or violence. We've taken legal action against them before, and I won't hesitate to use the full force of my office again. And that's against the pro-life demonstrators. But if you want to go into a clinic and keep your baby, they don't care if there's fear or intimidation or violence used for that. So they only want to protect your right to abortion, not your right to keep a baby.
Well, it's also here, too, when you look at states like New York and California, these women's crisis pregnancy centers are the front lines on this, because you're not going to get legislation through that's positive for the life issue. So you've got to protect the pro-life centers here, because they are the front lines in New York. So you've got to be able to adapt your strategies. In some states, you're working to get the right legislation through. In others, you're fighting just to keep these pro-life crisis pregnancy centers operating.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that's where you still have to realize that battle is still very real. Just because of overturning Roe versus Wade does not mean that states like New York are going to treat. In fact, I think they have increased their attacks. That's why we've got so many clients right now, and working with additional potential clients as well, because they're actually under more scrutiny and more legal challenges and more threats from elected officials, from government officials, not from activists, from elected officials. And by the way, they don't acknowledge, a couple pro-life protesters went into an abortion clinic in Brooklyn and protested. They didn't hurt anybody. It was, I guess, maybe they made some noise. It was criminal what they did. Trespass, misdemeanors. The same governor condemning that like it is the end of the world has said nothing about the firebombing of the pro-life pregnancy center in Buffalo, which is a felony. Destroying equipment, destroying property, literally burned out, including, I think, like machines, like the ultrasound machines, not cheap equipment.
Yeah.
And we have photos of it up right now. They don't talk about that. They talk about two vocal protesters, by the way, in New York City, of all places. Like, they're not used to people being loud and obnoxious.
Well, at least in New York City's problems right now.
Yeah, but they've made it a priority.
Yeah.
So while you've got people being punched in the streets, shoved into subways, their priority in New York is to go after peaceful protesters.
Yeah. So here's the other thing that I want to put this in perspective. We have been defending these pro-life centers for a very long time, including at the Supreme Court of the United States, where they were trying to force the pro-life center, CC, to give a pro-abortion message. In fact, a referral to abortion clinics. They were mandating that under California law. Now, we won at the Supreme Court, but the person we sued, Becerra, is now the head of HHS. So these are real fights right now. And frankly, folks, the Dobbs decision is great. Implementing it is a state-by-state, nuanced approach. It's very, very technical. We've got a whole team of lawyers on it. We're representing centers up in New York as well. But this is a real fight, Cece, for life here.
Right.
Look, it's good that the club of Roe versus Wade is off.
Right.
That's great. But now the battle begins.
It is. The battle's in the states. And interestingly, just about 2 weeks after the Pregnancy Resource Center in New York was firebombed, and of course the governor was completely silent, about 2 weeks later, she signed a bill into law that actually investigates any kind of center that does not provide abortion. That's the only centers they care about. They're going in, and this law
Say
basically.
That again to everybody. Folks, you need to hear this.
It's a law that she signed. The New York governor signed into being that only investigates centers that do not provide abortion. That's who they're targeting. And they ask for basically anything. And so we're representing several of the centers, the PRCs, the Pregnancy Resource Centers in New York, and we expect to be representing a lot more in the coming days. But these are the battles that we fight on a day-to-day basis for the crisis pregnancy centers or pregnancy resource centers across the nation.